Okay,
Sorry.
quick mic check. Mic's work. It is July 31st. This is a special meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. Couple board equalization hearings and a grant application. And we'll take a break and follow up with budget tour town hall. So first on the agenda, as per usual, is public comment. Is anyone here for public comment?
3 minutes for jokes.
There
I mean, I'm okay with it. It's 3 minutes.
All I did.
Okay, hearing no public comment, I'm gonna close public comment and move to Board of Equalization. Seeing as how the agenda lists Valero Diamond Metro first. However, if they're not present, I would prefer to take up the Buckland case because they are. Good. Yeah. Should we? Well, you can just speak for that, actually.
How do we do this? You go first. Go ahead.
What we're gonna do is we're gonna have her speak, and then we'll have you offer anything. And what I was trying to figure out is if I wanted you to come sit up here, but I don't think you need to. So we've got our assessor Donna G. Donna, will you describe the Buckland case to us?
Absolutely. We did receive a protest on June 12th for this property. The original value was 95,960,000. We did make an adjustment based on market sales down to 68,090. We did provide the comparable sales, and when we received the Board of Equalization information, I looked at the comparable sales and tighter, and it looks like there was an error on the first comparable on the list. It was double adjusted. The value of that first property was not 28,050. It was 54,350. So the assessor recommends adjustment down to the 54,350 based on comparable sales. Every 2 years, the assessor's office evaluates all property values based on the sales approach using qualified valid sales. The 2023 and 2024 values were set by sales that occurred July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2022. Vacant land sales with more acres were used and adjustments were made. In the letter that was sent to us for the BOE, it did indicate that the property and the comparable sales were larger. We do make adjustments to those properties based on a regression analysis and to determine values on those characteristics. Also, the original comparable sales provided on 7/10/24 again had that double adjustment on that first account. And those property owners were notified via an email back in July, the beginning of July. So
And
again, we are recommending an adjustment 54,350 based on the comparable sales. The value currently is 68,090. We have two comparable sales. One is at 68,090 on spot on to that property. I mean, it is the exact amount with minimal adjustments of a negative of 6,910. The other one is 27,300 with adjustments of 27,300. 54,350, which is being recommended, only has an adjustment of $650.
okay, do you mind summarizing for me, what is your recommendation?
The recommendation is a current value is at 68,090. Looking at the comparables, the assessor is recommending adjustment to the 54,350. And that is based on the first sale referenced on the comparable sales list with only a adjustments of minus $650.
Mr. Buckland, would you like to add anything?
Yes.
Just so the mics can hear you,
Or stand or.
wherever, whatever you're comfortable with.
Table before it falls over.
Perfect.
Came armed.
Pardon?
You came armed.
Probably, isn't it? For the record, Phil Buckland, Empire, Colorado. Thank you. You want me to just come up there? Push.
Wherever you're comfortable.
Here. Should be able to get you.
Yeah.
I won't bite.
Boy, these are. For the record, Phil Buckland, Empire, Colorado. And my son and I own the property together that's in question. And I have a question, and I'd like to just go over my thoughts on it, so forth. You mentioned two sales, one of them was 27 something.
These are the comparable sales, and I did email them to you, Brian.
Yeah. You gave me a
This
copy.
one was the one that was corrected. It was originally at 28. However, this was a double adjustment on here, so I had to remove it and correct it based on the regression analysis. So the true value is 54,350.
Oh, that's what originally was a 28 one,
Yeah,
so forth.
it was wrong
Okay.
because it was double adjusted in,
Yeah, that's what I
Okay.
didn't understand.
sure, yep.
I thought it was going the other way. I was
Oh.
hoping. But, okay, in my packet that I presented to y'all and so forth, I'll just make a hopefully brief summary in less than 10 minutes. What we're basing our comments on, it was appraised by US Bank for $12,000. And that was an appraisal that they did independently and so forth. And they couldn't find anybody to buy it because it is irregular shape, and that's one of our contentions. It's a long, narrow, skinny piece of property that cannot be built on between two other pieces of property, and it hasn't had a subdivision to the expansion of the property hasn't been approved and they built on it illegally, basically without a subdivision. And the property that was on that has been subsequently removed because it was not supposed to be there. It is not wide enough with the sliver to put a single wide trailer and have a 10-foot setback on it and so forth. And there's part of the problem. It's not wide enough to drill a well on it either. And the reason that US Bank finally agreed to get rid of it is they couldn't resolve the conflicts. And reason we were interested in it, because I had the property next to it, it was a vacant piece of land basically that ended up being bare for the bears and people to leave their trash and dump things in their cars and whatever and so forth. And we were, as some of you might relate to having a neighbor that stores a bunch of junk cars next to their property and so forth. It was a health hazard and a safety hazard and so forth. Because I told my wife, what do we want it for? But that's basically, we were just protecting ourselves so we wouldn't have to call the county up and say, would you please, you can find this person, tell them to remove their stuff somewhere. And the neighboring properties, they were complaining also, we all were, because trash was blowing around and wheels and old tires were full of water for mosquitoes and so forth. So we did clean it up after we purchased it. And the property has no road access easement to it. The bank had to purchase an easement just to get access to it. But it doesn't have, there's not wide enough to use the easement. The easements are wider than the property. The property being the irregular shape, the south third of it is underneath another easement from the trailer court. So you've only left 2/3 of the property left. The market comparisons, what we were trying to talk about was the smallest lot that was used as a comparison was 4 times the size, and they were of a more regular shape to where a square is easier to build on or a trapezoid easier to build on than a skinny triangle between spaghetti of a mining claim. And then also if you do, you have to drive through two trailer mobile home parks to get to it. So it's not a place that somebody want to buy just to put a tent on either, because you don't want to camp there right next to a mobile home park that you have to drive through to get to, and that's what you got, what you end up with. The other thing we were contending is for the comparisons, way I read the Colorado Division Property Taxes Assessor's Guide, compare it with equal tracts of property of 0 to 1, 1 to 3, 3 to 5, and so forth. There were none sold that we were aware of or confined in comparison less than the 2 acres that were used. So then the fallback was it's acceptable to use the average price of what land sells for in the county all over. And that was in 2023 was $21,200 and some dollars. So with that, a half acre, half that is about 12,000, and that is consistent with what U.S. Bank put on their property. We contacted 3 realtors. We got one of them to talk to us. And he was basically trying to help us out to say, no, I'm not going to list it either, but I'll help you out and say that you might get $10,000 for it if somebody wanted to put a property on it and have a tent, but the location, they're not going to do that for you. The only person you're going to be able to sell it to is somebody that doesn't do their due diligence, and they find out when they drive up there, then they'll do the same thing that the previous owner does. They'll either turn it back to the county or go into foreclosure. And that's how we bought it out of foreclosure from the U.S. Bank. So, but he would refuse to list it all. Well, didn't refuse, but he said he wasn't going to spend any money on it, and it wasn't worth his time to do it. And that was Josh Spinner with Clear Creek Realty. Attached a copy of the appraisal, and in conclusion, comparison to the appraisal, the odd shape, unbuildable, and it doesn't have an approved subdivision on it. That's how we come up with our comparison of with an appraisal versus using a comparison. And I think I have attached what I spoke to. Is there any questions that you all might have?
Questions?
Not for me right now.
I'm on Clear Map, and you said you own the surrounding properties. Is Windy Gap Loop a county road?
No. Nor is it maintained.
What's that?
Nor is it maintained by anybody.
Who owns it? Who owns Windy Gap Loop?
The road,
Mm-hmm.
we own the property under our property, but it's an easement with the east mobile home park. And the south and the west mobile home park is their private easement for their mobile homes.
Mm-hmm. Well, looking to the southeast at that, do it. Count number R. When Gap Loop goes through that parcel and it's owned by you and Brian. And the bimetallic, of course, is not on there. So I'm just, but it appears that you don't have access.
Yeah.
You have to grant access to yourself to have
You have to
access.
find access to use that right of way.
Who do you buy that from?
Pardon?
Who do you buy that from?
Who to buy the access from?
Uh-huh.
We don't. We have our access through the north side, through the condominiums.
Okay.
And that was basically the reason we bought this property for two. One was to get rid of the nuisance factor of having a unbuildable where people knew it was nobody's property and that's where they leave their stuff. And we bought the easement basically from U.S. Bank that they had to be able to have a title to it. They were supposed to, they had to buy an easement. The previous owners did not buy an easement, and that was one of their many problems for getting a legal subdivision. They didn't have any provable easement to it. So we bought it basically, so that give us a second access to our property.
Yeah, and I'm not an attorney or a realtor or an appraiser or any of those things. I was just looking at Windy Gap Loop goes through your property that you do have access to that has that mobile home on it that's doesn't list who owns the mobile home, but there's a property. And the road goes through that, and then the bimetallic property line comes right up to the road. And although the road is at that point on your other property that's adjacent to it. So I'm wondering, it
Can see what you're
sounds
looking
like
at.
you could give I mean, like I said, I'm not an attorney, but I'm just trying to make sense out of the argument that you don't have access when this is a property that you own. This is
Now
the
we do, now we
bimetallic.
do have property. We have access, but the easement that they purchased is this way.
Yeah. But I mean, if you
We
have
don't
access,
have, we don't have easement rights to this road
do you have an easement right to this property?
through this easement that we purchased.
Right. And so doesn't that give you access to the bimetallic by virtue of them being that
If we own,
easement?
if we own this property.
Oh, it says that you do.
Yeah.
It says
If
Phil
we
and
own this,
Brian.
if we own this property.
Yeah,
That's the reason we purchased it. So we would own it with the easement. Basically.
Yeah,
That's-
okay. Well, if you own both those properties, that's why I was wondering why the difficulty in obtaining the easement is if you own the property that you need the easement through. If you own both properties, so if you have an easement onto the property that's adjacent,
We didn't have an easement before we purchased that little sliver.
okay.
And if you own property, you can't be denied access to it, but you have to buy an easement. So our thought was, okay, let's buy this little sliver which has the easement, and that's what we basically bought was the easement.
Mm-hmm.
And that give us legal access to it versus just by right of using somebody else's easement.
Right. Okay, well, I don't have any other questions other than it's hard for me to figure out the easement problem to the bimetallic when you have an easement onto the property next to the bimetallic. You own both properties and the road. You have an easement onto your property.
Now we
The
do.
property that now you do. Exactly.
Before that, we did not.
So you're
have
looking
an
at, okay,
easement for it. And if you get the other easement we access we have is through the condominiums up there. And it's the same problem. We had to have a temporary easement to go through their property and across the privacy fence to get to it and so forth. It was just getting in mining claims is a difficult issue sometimes. And this gave access to, and we could record an easement that way versus having to say we were exercising an easement over, well, I don't know what you call it, but right of use or something like that.
So, or something like, anyway.
But basically all I'm saying is we bought it for two reasons. One, so it wouldn't be used for storage of trash and prevent somebody else from doing it. And the other one was the value it had to us was that easement. So that had some value to it. Otherwise, we'd let the county have it and they could run the trash truck up there.
Do you recall how the assessment for this small piece, what the assessment compares, how does it compare to the two adjacent pieces that you do own?
Their mining claims.
Okay.
The part of this that I want to dig into is the assertion that in statute we're only allowed to use comparables within certain ranges of property size. It's in like the 5th paragraph, starting with chapter 4. Do you agree with that assertion that the only properties that we can use as comparables are for this property would be between 0 and 1 acre?
I do not agree. We do a regression analysis, a linear regression analysis that determines values based on the sales. So we are able to do the adjustments so that it makes them comparable in size.
Okay. Peter, you're nodding that you agree with your
Yeah.
head. Do you have any words you'd like to add?
No, I agree 100. I'm not sure if I'm freezing or not, but I agree 100% with what Donna has said. This is not unusual to hear that an opposing argument, but I agree with what Donna is saying.
And when I read what's in this letter from Phil, and thanks for putting this in writing so we can look at it. You state that if there are not comparable sizes in the area, then the average per acre sales can be used. Do you agree with that statement that a lot of times these cases come to, well, we're bound by statute and sort of the regression analysis is what it is. You agree that in this case, we can say that there's not a comparable within an acceptable range? Or do you think we cannot?
Is that from me or
That's,
Donna?
that's Pete, well,
I'm sorry.
There is not one in that comparable range. That's why we rely on that regression analysis, which determines what adjustments need to make them comparable.
Correct.
And so my question is, legally, can we say is not a property that is comparable based on size? And therefore, we can use this alternative approach as is suggested?
As is suggested by,
Mr.
Phil?
Buckland?
yeah.
I disagree with that. I believe that you can. Donna, do you have a different view?
Yes,
So you, just to make sure, because I'm doing double negatives here.
Yeah,
We cannot establish that there is not a comparable vacant tract and therefore use this average value per acre for vacant land. Cannot.
right. If I'm following your double negative correctly, Donna and I are on the same page on that.
I'd rather go to a quadruple.
So, yeah, okay. Well, if we cannot, Phil, do you have any comment on that?
One other factor is the irregular shape of the property, which makes it, the comparable is difficult to do anyway. And the double negative assertion that you, it says you can, you should, or I didn't say you had to, it said are to be comparable. Now, using the computer models that goes into making the assessment on the comparables, take off pluses and minuses and all those things. That's where the difficulty runs into with what is buildable. And part of the contention is you cannot build a home on that property with the shape that's in it and have the setbacks and get the leach fields and the wells and everything in there. There's not room to be buildable.
and there was previously a mobile home on that property, which was demoed last year.
And
Was that,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
do we know if that mobile home was legal?
The county has not told me it was not legal. The county has not filed anything to say that it was illegal.
Okay, go ahead.
The well on it was not on their property. The did not have a setback, and there is no legal subdivision filed for it, and that was part of the previous attorney's work on it, was trying to get a legal subdivision for that piece of property, which couldn't be done without the adjoining properties work and agreement and so forth. So therefore, it never was done. Therefore, it's an illegal subdivision, and the mobile home was removed.
Okay, because we would have some kind of a variance on the record if there was a mobile home there that didn't meet setbacks, right?
Yes,
Also, I don't think we can allow a variance to have a well on another property.
that I don't know, because that's a land use.
Yeah.
But it would be in our track it system from the building department if there was any problems or complaints like I have seen on other properties.
The reason I'm asking these questions is I'm trying to figure out, If this is not a buildable lot, how does that change this? Did you assess this as a buildable lot?
We don't take that into for valuation purposes. We did not take that into account. It doesn't have a comparable through the regression analysis. So there's not an adjustment for buildable versus not buildable. If it was not buildable and it did not have access, then it would be a natural resource.
That's right. Okay, so
Right, but it had it had a mobile home on it, so it would not have been able to qualify as a natural resource.
that's the, thank you, the natural resource. If we decided it was a natural resource, how would that change this?
It would be changed to $200 per acre. Not based on comparable sales.
We'll accept that. No, I'm, and, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I'm just, maybe this is a good time for me to take a pause and see what my colleagues think. I've been kind of dominating this conversation.
Well, the access issues, I'm sorry, the access issues are just giving me pause for the reasons. I mean, you said that previously you didn't have access because the previous owner wouldn't allow access. But now you
Sorry,
own the
I'm
property.
having trouble hearing you. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. You said that previously you did not have access to the bimetallic because the previous owner of, I think where that trailer is, would not allow access. Am I
No.
correct?
No, I'm saying we had no legal easement attached to our property through that area.
But you do now?
We do now when we purchased the property that had the easement with it.
Right. And so my point is so maybe I'm misunderstanding. You're not claiming that you don't have access now. That's now a moot argument. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I'll
What,
stop talking about it.
Okay.
what,
I
what,
mean, they're all good. Those are things that we went through when we purchased properties, trying to think, oh, do we want to take on this headache or not?
I see there's a carve out in the middle of this property. That's a structure that exists today?
I'm sorry.
This property has like a hole in the middle of it? Is that's the
That's-
structure that
that-
exists today, or that's the mobile home that was?
That's
That was there. That was there.
The bimetallic is the one in question. Is that
I
correct?
don't think so.
No,
No, it's that odd shaped one with the hole.
the odd shaped lot.
Okay. Okay. Sorry.
It's the half acre that, a third of it's underneath a road.
I see.
Just,
And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
so that, like, when I'm looking at it and there's like a hole in the parcel in the middle and it's got a structure that I can see on the map. That structure is on a different property and it does exist?
That was where the mobile home was sitting.
Okay,
That was the location of the mobile home.
okay.
So you own that section as well where the mobile home was sitting, correct?
Own what?
You own the section where the mobile home was
That's
sitting?
the one we're talking about. Matter of fact, that's correct, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
yeah.
the whole little chunk, the little rectangle is where the mobile home was.
The one's that
sitting.
odd little shape. It's got a 2-page legal description on it. So it's going around all sorts of different directions.
Yeah, I'm
That's
just,
a really good point that Donna just brought up to Randy's point. Not to get confused. And that's what I was doing in the courthouse today. I was trying to figure out. I was looking at bimetallic. I couldn't find the property of that little odd shape. So it's at one time, that's how they named it in the property records. Even though the mining claim is bimetallic, the little odd shape is a subdivision of the bimetallic for the property records.
So
That's the reason we couldn't find it in the clerk's office, and Donna's people helped us find the
that's
two
what,
bimetallics.
Yeah,
that's what was throwing me off.
Yeah, that's a good,
Was in the verbiage. I saw bimetallic in the
Yeah.
description of the property. So I'm looking at the bimetallic on Clear Map right now, and that's what was throwing me off.
Yeah.
Bimetallic claim.
and that's,
So the property in question that we're talking about is that tiny little piece where the mobile home did sit?
correct.
like, I don't know. I'm willing to entertain the idea that this is not a buildable lot. If it's not a buildable lot, doesn't it belong in natural resources?
Not if it has access.
If it's not buildable, but it has a road, it does not belong in. natural
Typically don't put it in a natural resource. It's gotta have the qualifications of
resources.
not buildable. It's gotta not have access, surrounded by other properties similar in nature.
Darn it, I should have bought the easement. May I ask another question? And that's the reason we came up with what I thought was a compromise of the average price of the land, half acre. Average was approximately the 12,000 again, which US Bank came up with their own independent appraisal and said to get this off the dime, let's go with that and not worry about natural resource or creating the problem of going through the legal steps of trying to make a legal subdivision out of it, which is just would be a nightmare also.
So this property is about the size of the footprint of my house. It's really small.
Yes, if you knock off your porch.
If I cut the edge of the roof off.
Yeah.
So
Matter of fact, that's a real good description of it. And the property to the south of your house is what it looked like before we cleaned it up. You know what I'm referring to.
Yeah, it's about 30 by 50, a little more than 50, but it's irregular shaped.
Yes,
So it's about 15.
it's a skinny piece of pie.
1,600 square feet of land, which is
0.195 acres.
I don't think it is.
0.55.
I was trying to be generous of how you get those little skinny triangles.
It's about 4% of an acre. It's about a 25th of an acre.
Yeah,
Just doing a quick measure, I'm
yeah,
seeing
yeah. I mean, it's really
It's a half
quite
acre.
small.
4 feet. I mean, there's a little piece that sticks off the edge, but I took more this direction. The other direction, it's about 30 by 50. It might be 16 or 17 or 1,800.
And that little
It's about
piece of
5%. It's about 4 to 5% of an acre, or a 20th to a 25th of an acre.
It's 0.550 acres.
The
It's
total,
what?
It's a half an acre. It's 0.550 acres.
the total, if you could go
The
through all
total.
the boundaries and everything. But
that specific
Randy's
parcel.
point, the buildable part that's not under the road, and part of it on the south side is on the other side of the easement, which is even worthless too, because it's like 15 feet of that is over on the other side of the road easement.
How do we establish those criteria? No access. It has to be unbuildable and no access. Is that in statute or is that an?
No, that's just how we determine the natural resources. We don't determine if it's buildable or not. That is done by land use.
I'm hard for that. The reason this should be natural resources.
Hard for us, trying to figure out how I'd pay that much money for it.
$68,000.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you end up, you end up in a situation where statute has you locked in and you just look at the comparables and that, but this situation, like we don't have a comparable that is there a comparable in the county for a property like this? That's this tiny, that's this boxed in? I mean, can you build on this without a variance?
Donna, can I ask you to look at something here real
Sure,
quick?
yes, absolutely.
Is this all we're talking about, or is it this?
Yeah, there's one
This?
next door.
No, it's just the one property.
It's just that.
Yeah.
That's a good example.
Nope, that's where the mobile is.
That little bit.
The
Demo.
property you're talking about?
Yeah, but the
That from a long time
property
ago.
includes that land
It's a
now,
good place to camp up.
where the mobile
Okay,
is sitting.
okay, I get it now.
Yeah, because it's.
Okay, so that's
mobile-
why it's a half an acre. Okay,
Yes,
all right.
yes, because the mobile is gone now and it was a separate M number.
So all of this is combined into one property now,
That's
is that
correct. Yep, just that
Okay.
one shape on the outside.
All right, thanks. So it's about a half an acre then. It's, you know, what you're looking at is that versus that. And when I said is just where the mobile home was sitting, that's that little piece there that was separate. that You're talking about the hole in the center. So what they're talking about is that plus that in
Mhm.
one property, which is a half an acre.
Yeah, and that's where we contended that it was underneath another easement, which makes it unusable for us other than get to pay taxes on it.
You say there's another easement that goes through there?
Yeah, that's the one that the mobile home park goes up to the old Jim Craft house property. And like I say, that's the reason we thought the compromise was, let's go back, just use appraisal and we pay the taxes and quit spending time on it. Get my wife off my back.
Doy, do you have any I know you're not quite site development, right? Zoe is our road and bridge engineer.
I am site development.
You are site development.
Yes. But,
Come on up here, Stoy.
Do you, I imagine you might be able to put some clarity on this. What I think I see is that you can't build on this property without a variance. I don't know how you get a well, a septic and a house with all those setbacks without a variance. And I don't know if it would be wise to grant that variance. I shouldn't say that, right?
Too late.
Your question, can we grant a variance for a well and something?
I mean, Peter, do you have this up? I mean, this is a tiny property. I think this is natural resources, but
yeah, I'm having trouble conceptualizing what this property looks like without a visual, I guess.
Bringing up.
If it's a half acre or a.
it's a half acre that's, you know, is that a polyhedron? What is that?
It's just natural resources.
Part of
I think,
And, but.
I don't know what it
is
is.
that
I don't think that's the answer.
the width of that lot, it's.
Yeah.
You can't meet your.
Do we have
setback.
time constraints on making the decision?
Yep,
Yes.
and so we could do an analysis on that,
We
you
have
know,
to
that's
decide.
really, and just to be clear, you know, I do represent site development.
During your meeting, I don't know what time constraints are, but we have to make a decision.
Deadline on.
Oh, yep, August 5th.
Sorry, sorry. go ahead.
To be clear, I do represent site development, but setbacks are by our planning department. And so that really isn't my purview. But in other cases like this, we oftentimes, we do have irregular shaped lots like this across the county. And oftentimes we see developers, especially if they own adjacent properties, sometimes combine those as a solution to be able to develop a property such as that.
And we're not contemplating a lot combination, because if there was a lot combination, it'd be reassessed, it'd be a new property, right?
Yeah, it would change, we would combine the two properties, it would make it larger.
And then it wouldn't be natural resources.
That's correct. Or if another house was put on it,
I
or another mobile or module.
mean, I think this is a natural resources property.
Well, that's an opinion. I'd be interested in knowing Peter's legal opinion if he is able to look at the properties and the
So-
location.
The property is not part of the packet. Looks like this was submitted by Mr. Buckland.
I'm sorry.
Was this all submitted by Mr. Buckland? So it's not part of the packet and I don't see it on screen. So I'm unable to look at the property itself.
You sure, George?
We do need to make sure that any documents that have been submitted do get added to the packet, just for the record.
I mean,
I can bring it up. I just didn't want to put his address on blast on Facebook. But I'm happy to do it.
No address. We removed the 81.
Oh,
If you go to
Okay.
account number,
If you're able to email it to me, I can look at it that way as well.
where it says,
yeah. All right, 1 second, Peter, I'm pulling it up.
yeah, account number. There you go.
this is where the fun happens.
R 1649.
This is what we submitted with a copy of just a from
Yes,
that part there.
that's right.
I know.
That helps. He can look at, there you go.
Oh, shoot, Megan.
There you go.
I see it.
Okay.
I think it's a good question. Basically, can we take the can?
This is where the mobile was sitting.
Correct.
One where I'd actually like to.
What is the width of this property?
Well, the entire property is about
Half acre. I don't have the measurements.
So there's a legend do you still have it up on another window? Because there is a legend.
You have a laser pointer?
I don't think we do.
Or mouse?
about 110 feet wide, 111 feet wide at the narrowest point.
But that doesn't count because it was never approved subdivision. They did a
Any
quick
claims
claim,
need-
did a quick claim deed
No.
without doing the subdivision.
You know, I'm okay finding a decent justification if this is an unbuildable lot, but I'd like for us to be standing on sound legal ground. And if the subdivision argument's not a real argument because it's a mining claim, and if it doesn't qualify for natural resources, Then I
Well, I
would
think-
suggest we do a continuation to let our attorney look at this and understand the characteristics of the law. Because I'm hearing something from Donna that doesn't make sense with regard to natural resources or the subdivision argument based on my knowledge of building on mining claims. So that's why it's not that I don't sympathize with the buildability of the lot thing. I just like us to have a sound legal justification that our attorney can agree with if we go forward with this.
So Peter, if both parties agree to defer a decision, is that something we can do?
No, we still need to have a decision by August 5th by statute. So we cannot defer it beyond August 5th. August 5th is Monday. We could have
Right.
another special meeting conceivably, but realistically, I do not see how this would satisfy the definition of a natural resource looking at the property. But I'm happy to review it in more detail and discuss it with Donna as well.
I'm mistaken. That was 80 feet wide, though, by the way. I
We
was
could have our
taking the wrong measurement.
planning staff work with Peter to
Determine if it's
determine
buildable.
If it's buildable or not, you have to schedule a meeting on Monday.
What are you guys doing on Monday? You want to keep talking about whether this property is buildable?
Phil has a comment.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Phil.
And that was my point of saying, average value per acre of 20,000 throughout the county. Let's just say it's a half acre. Get it off our minds and say a half of that is approximately $12,000. And not argue with if it's a
24,000.
natural resource or illegal subdivision or whatever. Got an appraisal. It matches basically half acre of what a 2 acre lot would be at 50,000. That's 25,000 an acre, so. And it's
So-
a half of that, so that's 12,000.
Yeah, but that's county.
Respectfully, we are bound to go and follow statute. So I understand the idea of where we could land on a certain number, but I am not sure that that necessarily is the appropriate thing to do. We cannot just respectfully make up a solution. It either conforms or doesn't conform. The comparables, the way I have looked at the packet, the information I read, as indicated, tend to agree with the assessor on this. However, I'm more than happy to review whether or not it could be under some other category such as natural resource. But
Are we able to make a decision, a pending decision that would be qualified based on a staff analysis that would follow I don't think we can do that on the Board of Equalization.
Like a conditional motion, is that what you mean?
Yeah,
If
I
staff,
would, I'd advise against that because whether you have a conditional motion or not, you'd still have to reconvene.
ratify the decision.
Yeah.
Okay.
go ahead.
This is probably I think I'm talking to Peter, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Wherever you're at.
Peter up in the sky.
Okay, up there in that corner. Drop the comparable thing. Is it not acceptable to use a recent appraisal, independent appraisal? Is that not an acceptable method
would-
if the appraisal, if there's not an acceptable comparable or not acceptable, but a comparable?
We could consider an appraisal done within the time frame for the sale. So for 23, 24 would have to be July 1st, 2020, June 30th, 2022.
And that would have to be done before Monday.
An appraisal, yeah, within that time frame, though. If it's too late to do it, because a fee appraiser would look at current market value,
Right.
not back in time.
Okay,
And so my point is, it wasn't within the 1 year or whatever, 23 appraisal, but it was, even if you took some 5% or 10% a year off that 12,000, it's still in that ballpark number of less than 50,000.
I don't think that that's gonna fly with statute. That's what I'm hearing. But,
Yeah, me too.
it seems to me like our options are to, deny today
Or accept
or
the
ask or table it, accept the assessor's recommendation for a reduction. Or table this to Monday and ask our planning department to work with Peter to determine if we think this lot is buildable. If the board legally has the latitude to declare this natural resources, I can understand why in a lot of properties, it makes sense to say it needs to be both not buildable and not have access.
I have time Monday.
So, well, yeah, what do we think? Those are the options.
I'd like to have more information
Yeah, same.
and I would make time.
I can't deviate from state statute regarding this
No,
without a legal analysis to confirm my basis of deviation from state statute for what our allowable guidelines are. And so I would either have to access the 50 plus recommendation of the, accept that today. For me, that's how I would have to vote, or I'd have to defer until Monday after a staff analysis of buildability, which could change, which might change the assessor's recommendation.
Think couldn't we do a Zoom like we have last year?
Yeah, we could Zoom.
Can we do it
um,
not between 10 and noon?
I'm good. The afternoon is best for me. Anytime after 1 o'clock.
I can't do between about 1:30 and 3:30. That's the only time I can't go.
Should we do 3:30 or 4 o'clock or
3:30 can work.
is that in?
I'm gonna be in Denver, an appointment from 2 to 3, and I just need time to get situated somewhere with Wi-Fi.
That gives enough time for you to file we're meeting with statute. Just want to make sure we're on the deadline day, right?
Oh, yeah.
Is that,
Maybe we make a decision at 5 o'clock. Are you able to execute it?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, she's confident.
Ma'am.
So 3:30?
it's 3:30,
Yeah, okay.
and I'm hearing.
Okay.
And if I could
Good.
just ask Mr. Buckland to provide paper copies of whatever he wants us to review as well, so that we get that, not just for the record, but so that I can review it.
Yeah, I'll do that. I thought I provided.
I
all
will
the map.
scan in my packet, Peter, and email it to you.
All right, thank you.
I think the thing that I'd like to hear from the planning department is just whether you can build on this, whether you can fit all the things that you need to build on this lot without a variance. And what that might say about whether this is natural resources. I think that's the question I'd like to answer.
Yeah, and
Any
maybe it's
other-
not natural resources. Maybe natural resources is a stretch, because I really have a problem with declaring natural resources for places that are next to roads with things built all around them. I think that's a real stretch of the term.
I think I agree with Peter on that one. It's just,
I'm totally uncomfortable with that. We did it once. I don't want to make this a precedent of just doing that every time we want to cut a break because something's not worth something. Let's just decide it's not worth the money for a valid reason otherwise.
yeah,
Natural resources is it can be mined, it can be cut, it can be used for some other purpose.
Yeah, okay, maybe I
I
misunderstand.
agree with that also. I mean, it's just a worthless piece of property. All it is. It's not natural resource or anything.
Up to you. Apologize.
No, that's okay. Maybe you can help us understand the various categories that are available here. Something isn't quite adding up. And I know there's been a lot of inflation and we've denied a lot of claims. So,
And we do have this as residential currently. So it's being assessed at a residential rate, not as a vacant land rate,
and vacant land is more, correct?
correct? It's being assessed at 6.7% when it is sitting as vacant land.
Huh.
Okay. Well, we're gonna follow logic in the law here on Monday.
Just to confirm Zoom only.
Zoom only.
Yeah.
2:30.
So I,
It's only
at
be
this
somewhere in
point,
Denver.
I'd welcome a motion to table.
3:30.
3:30 on the,
3:30.
3:30.
on the 5th.
So move.
Second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I will get that packet to you, Peter.
Thank you.
Let's do the next one.
Sheriff, friendly reminder, we got a public hearing.
Yep.
40 minutes.
Yep.
Excused.
Yes.
Thank you,
Thanks.
gentlemen and
Thank you.
ladies.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you,
Bill.
Mr. Buck. And Mr. Buckland.
Thank you.
Next up is Valero Diamond Metro Incorporated. Are they present? One?
Two people online are not that person.
Okay. Please proceed, Donna.
Okay, assessor recommends denial. We know we'd look at sales from July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2022. However, for commercials, we go back to July 1st, 2017. We use the 5-year period for commercial properties. The commercial property value is considered using the cost, market, and income approaches. Clear Creek County does use the sales approach for our commercial sales. It is stated in here, the documentation provided by Valero is using the cost approach and the Marshall and Swift cost analysis, but again, we use the sales approach. I did run comparables on this, and the comparables are from July 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2022. And their value is currently at $713,870. I looked at other retail operations in Georgetown. The first one came in at $736,268. The second one came in at $2,174,872. And the third one came in at $726,128. The 2 million probably is an outlier. And the other two comparables are right on with the value.
Peter, do you have anything to add?
No, nothing. Just to confirm, Donna, notice was sent
Yes,
to the other party?
I would assume so. Beth sends those notifications out.
Do we have a return receipt?
Let's see, what is this one?
Tracking, USB tracking for an item. I'm not sure what item it was.
That would have been delivered to Georgetown. So that would have been their delivery to us. Beth is not providing me with copies of the letters on either end. Phil got his letter, so I would assume. Because
Okay,
it
well,
goes,
Peter, do you recommend, since we don't have?
yeah, I would prefer without confirmation that we at least sent the proper notice, that this also be tabled to Monday.
and I do have her email.
And did you happen to speak to her?
I have not since it went to the BOE.
Okay, so my suggestion would be to, again, table this as well, allow the assessor additional opportunity to confirm.
We're meeting anyway.
Okay.
Okay, I'm happy to make that motion. I move that we table this case until Monday at 3:30 for reconsideration.
Second that. Okay, motion for Monday the 5th at 3:30 to table this. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Item.
Thank you, Donna.
Yeah, thank you. I'll email Valero and see if they got that contact.
Okay.
See you, Donna, thanks.
Thanks, guy.
Next on the agenda, we have consideration of approval of a Department of Local Affairs Energy Mineral Grant application for broadband expansion. Becca Abrahamson is here to present.
I'm gonna kick us off, if you will.
Sure. I mean, sorry, that's your job. You're supposed to say sure.
Well, I agree.
You originally were coming to you today to ask for your support and approval to apply for a Department of Local Affairs Energy and Mineral Grant to both help us with our the sewer project specific to getting a shooting range ultimately open, and while doing so, putting broadband in the ground. It's here at a regular meeting, or excuse me, it's here at a special meeting because the grant itself is due tomorrow. And it was just brought to my attention last week that it was something that could potentially help us with these two efforts. So the agenda memo that you have in front of you or with this packet gives you, lots of numbers related to both the sewer project as well as the broadband project. The broadband project has actually increased by at least 50% since we sat down and having the conversation about whether or not we wanted to apply for this grant. I want to pull the broadband from our grant, from our grant application, because we're just not confident on what those numbers are. They've increased at 50% at this point. We know that, and we're not even confident in that number. And so I don't want to tell you today that applying for this grant is going to cost the county X for this broadband expansion when I can't confidently tell you what that number is.
Okay,
So I would like, however, to allow us to apply for the grant to specifically fund the sewer. That comes at no cost to the county. It's only going to save us money in terms of a project we're already doing. So saying yes to this grant today, only for the sewer expansion, is probably going to save the county it's somewhere between $150,000 to $160,000, we believe. So
are we saying yes to accepting the grant, or are we saying yes to proceeding with the
yeah,
application?
we're just saying yes to proceeding with the application. There's no guarantees we're even going to get it. It's a more competitive grant with the broadband in there, I think, but based on our lack of confidence in numbers right now, I'm not confident in recommending we apply for both.
And then what's the decision date on the grant itself?
Here sometime in November with contract happening probably January, February of next year.
Okay, before November, do we have the ability to determine what that cost is going to be? Because I know that those energy impact assistant grants, what they don't like to do is grant grants and then have you say, oops, sorry, after they grant it to you, they say, okay, you've got it. Now we need to put together a contract. And then you come back in December and say, oh, we decided we can't fulfill the terms. And that bums them out because then they denied somebody else. And so I'm fine with proceeding as you're suggesting myself. I'd just like some assurance that we can verify what that cost impact of the county is going to be before November so that we can bail if we need to bail.
Stoy and his team already did an RFP for sewer project. They got no bids. And then we asked gentlemen, our contractor of record at the shooting range, if they would be willing to bid. They did so, and that came in 130% over our budget and over our our estimate at the time. So we want to wait, delay, and hopefully save a little bit of money by waiting to rebid that project come springtime or late winter before construction season starts. But applying for this grant just for the sewer project is only going to save the county money. It's not going to cost us, and it's actually going to decrease our cost when it comes to putting in the sewer project itself. So
Okay.
I struggle with the idea that we should pull the broadband out of here because I think one thing that we know is true is that there will never be a lower cost opportunity to put some conduit in the ground than when we have already paid to dig the trench.
If we're already digging that trench, why is the cost so high to put that plastic in the trench?
well, again, if we only do the sewer project, we're talking about a trench from the shooting range to the,
So it's additional trenching.
yeah, it's additional trenching. So it's a sewer line. It's from shooting range 2, but the name of that entity is,
Station 1A,
no, where we're connecting the sewer to.
yeah, Click Creek Sanitation District.
So that's the length we're talking about when it comes to a sewer pipe. We're talking about the access to the broadband. We're going all the way down, cutting across the creek over to the other side of I-70 to extend broadband from there all the way back down.
Okay.
Can we at least include the cost of putting conduit
In the trench.
in the trench that we dig?
Just that short smooth span.
I mean, dig once, right?
Right.
Well, it's true. We
Um,
could do that.
That's not much, that shouldn't be much expense. I would think that plastic.
Yeah, and we're still exploring opportunities to partner with the RV park developer there that is also requires sewer service to connect to the sanitation district. So whether it's through a partnership or if they do it independently, they're going to be trenching there too, and they may be willing to lay conduit in their trench as well.
Okay. And then how, if the entire broadband piece were to be built, how does it cross the highway?
How does it cross the highway?
How does it physically cross the highway?
It would hang from the bridge.
At the bridge, so it would be attached to the bridge coming over.
It would be attached to the bridge on the overpass, on
Right.
2 overpasses, one for the highway, one for the creek.
Right.
And in the sections, alternatively, it'll be trenched.
Okay.
I mean, my concern is that we say yes to this entire project. We're telling you today it's going to cost us an extra $150,000. And we come back to you 4 months from now and tell you, well, we're wrong. I need
It's
more than.
350.
Yeah, exactly. That's my concern. And I would rather, this grant is available again next year. So we can have a conversation as a team about potentially putting some money into the budget we're gonna bring you for FY 25 to be able to, some matching dollars to do these kinds of projects. That's the best way to be doing these things forward, so.
Well, and out of respect to George's comment, which I believe in, that every time we dig a trench somewhere and it's going down a road, it's creating that access, there needs to be
Right.
plastic in there, so we don't have to dig it again. We just come to it. So as long as we know we're doing that, we factored that plastic into the price on the initial grant, then if you're pulling broadband out, then let's include broadband conduit for the section that we are doing. If you're not going to include the rest of it in the grant, that would be my hope. And I'm done. Mitch hasn't even spoken.
No, you parroted what I shared earlier today. So that's scary.
Well, it sounds like we're in agreement. Maybe what we're gonna ask for is we're gonna authorize this grant
Application.
application, including. Are we talking conduit only, talk conduit and fiber? What I really don't want to do is make this motion over specific. I want to give staff some flexibility here.
I mean, you could just say it's authorizing the submittal of a grant to fund the county sewer project, including broadband infrastructure.
Right. I'm good with that. And the infrastructure can be the conduit at this time because there's no point in putting fiber in it if it only goes from point A to point B and there's nothing there. It doesn't connect to anything. So it's a portion of the plastic. So moved.
All right. I move that we do it. County manager
Second.
said,
Okay.
Second. I'll be the second.
Okay.
No problem.
Got a motion and a second, all in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Thank you, staff, for finding this grant, for discovering this broadband opportunity. Keep working on it. Yep.
Oh, so when we do.
Yes, so the board is going to be in recess until we convene at 5:30 for the 2025 budget tour meeting. Megan, do you have anything to add?
I was just gonna say, I'm actually going to close this meeting and start a new one. That way they are separate and people do not get confused. But it's going to be this same number / Zoom link. It's just gonna be a
Okay.
new one.
Can I make a quick comment before we go? It's just on another matter, just kind of a public notice thing, and I appreciate it getting out there. That we've now moved, as everybody here knows, to a stage, but the public, if they happen to tune in, know we've moved to a stage 2 fire ban. Moving forward today, appreciate that people pay proactive attention, get ahead of the game before it becomes a problem. And what that means is no fires, period, of any kind. No off-road travel, leaving a county road anywhere at this time for, I think, OHVs or other forms of motorized recreation. And the only thing that's allowed outside your house, your property, is a gas fire if it's tended constantly. And that's based on the current forecast, a whole lot of stuff that's in the matrix for making these decisions that qualified for it today. So I just want to make sure the public has every opportunity to know, and this is one of those opportunities.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Important
Thank you.
Public update. Now we are in recess until 5:30. It will be a separate Zoom link.
No,
Same
Zoom
link, new meeting. Same meeting of the board,
Recorded differently.
recorded differently. This is all clear as mud.
All right, thanks.